CollectAWrestlePalooza. CollectAWrestlePalooza.
What's up, wrestling enthusiasts, sports card collectors? Tom here from CollectAWrestlePalooza. Today's video is all about Hasbro WWF action figures. Now, I still own a ton of those in raw condition from when I was a kid. They were the first action figures I fell in love with. I owned He-Man, Mask, G.I. Joe, all that stuff too, Star Wars figures when I was a child, but these were the first ones that I actually really played with and loved. Now, during November of 2019, as you folks may know, Netflix came out with the Toys That Made Us episode featuring WWF action figures, and I purchased 4 mint-on cards during that time or a few months after. I actually bought them between March and April of 2020, and you might say I bought them at the height of the boom. I try to collect mint-on cards that are rarer, that are in really excellent condition, and in this case I went after the ones that had different colored backs than the standard light blue. I thought that as Hasbro got later in their production, the production runs went down, the series wasn't as popular, so some of those figures were more sought after from a rarity perspective, but then I also thought aesthetically it was also really nice to see the bright colors on the back as opposed to the light blue. So I focused on those. I purchased 4 of them, as I said. So what I'm going to do is present those action figures. I'm going to show you what I bought, and then at the end of the video I'll tell you what the most recent comps are of those figures. I'll tell you what I paid back between March and April of 2020, and we'll see how I did in investment wise. If you do have a guess in terms of which one was the best investment, please leave a comment below, or if you have any stories or thoughts or ideas about these Hasbro collectibles in general. I know they're well loved in the hobby. So let's get started. I'm going to start with my Kamala. Most of these I have in case protectors. This one I do not. But Kamala is one of my favorite wrestlers. Series 7 came out in 1991, and this was the first of the Hasbros to feature a back card that was not the standard blue color. It featured many new superstars, including Crush, Owen Hart, Nails. It also had the first appearances of Shawn Michaels and Razor Ramon. Both of those superstars had variations later in Series 10 on the dark blue cards. Now this was right before their famous WrestleMania 10 ladder match, which happened a year later. So this is a Series 7 Kamala. He features the Kamala Crush. The card is in pretty good condition. There is some wear on the back corner here. I'm not sure if the camera can pick it up, but overall very bright. The hang tag is nice and intact. The bubble is perfect, no denting on it whatsoever. Very, very clear and clean. So very nice figure of Kamala. This figure was hot for a while. It has cooled off since then. The Series 8 WWF Mr. Perfect Curt Henning. Now, Curt Henning, as a superstar who died before his age would imply, makes him much more collectible. Of course, he also was a Hall of Famer, had an amazing, amazing career, and the Mr. Perfect character was very beloved amidst fans. So the Series 8 Hasbros came out in 1994. Of course, as I said, featured this red, sort of orangish red card, but more of a bright red. It started to decline in production by then. As I stated, the Hasbros by 1994 were not as popular, so they only came out with 5 or 6 superstars in this series. The first Undertaker was part of Series 4 in 1992. In Series 8, there was a new red card Undertaker, which he had a black jacket. There was also a mail-away Undertaker in Series 6, but I won't be talking about that in this video. It also featured Bam Bam Bigelow, which is a sought-after superstar, Bret Hart, Lex Luger, and the first Yokozuna. I will be alluding to the second Yokozuna a little bit later in the video. They're nice due to the color of the card back, as I said, limited run in production, and also the fact that only 6 superstars were produced, many of them duplicates. So I thought that that made this red card series pretty special. Now, Mr. Perfect features the Perfect Plex, although it's not his real Perfect Plex. It's just a shot like this. The action figures all had spring-loaded mechanisms, and as a child, it was hard to make them do their real move, which was a drawback. They were more made just to be beat against each other. But as a creative, imaginative kid, of course, you figured out a way to make him do the perfect plex anyway. And some of the superstars were modeled so that you could do the finishing move in some way, shape, or form, where Warrior had outstretched arms in one of his figures, so you could do the Gorilla Press Slam. Rick Rude was posed like this, so that you could put another figure's head there and do the Rude Awakening. So they did consider things like that. However, for the most part, they were molded plastic, and you couldn't really do the finishing maneuvers. But this is Mr. Perfect. Next one is Series 9. I'm doing these chronologically. This also came out in 1994 and also had 6 superstars. I don't know if they came out about the same time or what time of year they came out, but this came after the Series 8 red cards, and these had a really nice purple card. Now, Doink, who's one of my favorite WWF superstars of all time, this was the only figure in the series that actually had hair, you can see, and it's somewhat of a caricature or cartoon of the superstar. He has that one really big hand, much bigger than any human would really have. So it's sort of a gimmicked figure, if that makes sense. Series 9 also featured a repeat Hacksaw Jim Duggan, a repeat Ted DiBiase, the Steiner brothers, which had come to the WWF by that point, packaged separately, and also Tatanka, one of the only Tatanka cards from the early days of the WWF. This figure has the big top clobber. The card is in absolutely immaculate condition. The corners are almost perfect. No wear, very little wear on the back, but all the writing is intact and very, very clean. Love this card. And then finally, remember how I mentioned Yokozuna came out in the red card series, and he came out in the green card series as well. Here's a green card, mint on card Yokozuna. This was the final series that came out from the Hasbros. This came out as well in 1994. They were producing a lot at that time. This is Series 11. The most sought after figures, as I stated, the 1-2-3 Kid is probably the most valuable of the Hasbros, outside of course, the mail-aways, which I mentioned before. Undertaker and Hogan had some mail-aways which command a huge price. You can also find in the green cards an Adam Bomb, an Evil Crush, as opposed to the babyface Kona Crush, Billy and Bart Gunn of the Smoking Guns, packaged separately, and Ludwig Borga, who's Tony Jaume, was also a mixed martial artist and had a short run in the WWF. And here is the green card Yokozuna. I always store it on its back because it's quite a heavy figure. And his finishing move was the Sumo Smash, which was more just his arms going up and down. You can see on the back here a nice card. Everything is very well intact. Again, this one is in immaculate condition for a pretty rare figure. So as promised, I'm going to tell you what I paid for each of these and what the current market price is. We're going to start with Kamala. I bought that in March of 2020 for $97.55, and that's the all-in price including taxes and shipping. Fair market price right now, I think I'd break about even. $80 to $90 after fees, I'd probably lose a little bit, but it's held its value. That one is not as rare as the other ones. Mr. Perfect, bought in March of 2020, paid $133.54. That one has held its value. I have seen sales $200, $300, $400 back last year. Now the fair market value is probably about $150, somewhere in that range. There are some sales that are a lot less than that, but the card is not in as good condition as the one that I have. Doink, again bought in March of 2020. I paid $115.18 for him. Right now in excellent condition, there's a lot of variation. But I'd say for the condition that my card is in, a fair market value would be about $150, although I've seen sales up as high as $180 recently for a mint on card Doink. And then finally, the best investment, the Yokozuna. Again, bought it in March of 2020, paid $275.72. Doesn't come up very often. Last sale I saw was for $450 to $500 in that range, but right now people are asking $800 to $1,000, and again, you just don't see them.
CollectAWrestlePalooza. CollectAWrestlePalooza.